My Little Pony is owned by Hasbro Studios and DHX Media. Please support the official release. Some adult language may be in this video. Hello YouTube, Chris here. Well, this is my top 10 episode list for Season 7. My bottom 5 was just released, and hopefully I get this one up now. Now, I went with 10 because there was a lot of good episodes this season. I hope not to make this video too long, so I'll try not to gush about these episodes. But a lot of these I'm sure are on your guys' list too. So this is just my list, so that's just the way it is. Okay. I'm going to go with number 10, A Health of Information. I really loved Fluttershy in this episode. Her determination was great. She felt responsible for Zecora, and she did everything possible, sacrificing her own health in order to save Zecora. And I thought that was very admirable for Fluttershy. This really showed her development over the past several seasons. Not to say there weren't a few problems with this episode. Twilight was a bit downplayed in this episode quite a bit. She was not worried Twilight at all, which is strange since this is basically a fatal disease. And you're telling me, what? Twilight can literally create stuff out of nowhere, teleport 6 people at once, but she can't get some honey from a bunch of bees. What? That's the only part of this episode that really pushed me the wrong way. Okay, number 9, I have to say, is Uncommon Bond. I really liked this episode. Not only did we get to see another side of Starlight, we got to see all her friends interacting. This episode really developed Sunburst a lot more than anything we've seen up to this point. Sunburst is now one of my favorite characters. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually do ship him with Twilight. Which is a big thing for me. It's the first straight ship for Twi that I actually support. Before this, I always said Twi Luna was my favorite, and then Twi Dash after that. But after seeing those two interact, this is an actual pairing I could see happen in the show. We all know this show's never going to do a gay relationship. And believe me, I have no idea what an actual relationship is like, but it's pretty cool the way those two interact. I could totally see them as a couple. And it was nice seeing Trixie interact with Sunburst, and also Starlight and Maud. It's always good to see Maud. At the end, when they all played that game, that was pretty cool. And it was something Starlight needed to learn. That you don't want to live in the past. That is what got her down this path in the first place, was her living in the past. She had to learn to live in the now, which was great for her. Alright, number 8, I'd have to say, is Parental Guidance. A lot of people don't like this episode because the way Rainbow Dash and her parents were portrayed, but I disagree. I liked how this episode went. Having Scootaloo be the one to actually go find Rainbow's parents, that was beautiful. Scootaloo is the one pony that can interact with Rainbow and her parents that makes it feel so natural. And I loved her parents. They were over the top, a little too self-absorbed with Rainbow Dash. I can agree with that. But her mother was awesome. I loved Windy Whistles. And Bull Hothoof was also cool. So, yeah. And there's two parts of this episode that some people don't seem to like. Is one, when Rainbow blew up her parents. They said she was way too harsh on them. I don't really agree with that because of how they were acting. Hell, they put their lives in risk with those fireworks. So yeah, Rainbow was in the right, but she also was in the wrong at the same time. And of course, the biggest thing from this episode, we found Scootaloo does not have supportive parents. That's as far as they'll go right now. So we'll see what happens next season if they actually confirm that. I've seen some thumbnails that seem to suggest we'll see Scootaloo's parents, but the source I saw it from is known for making strange thumbnails, so I won't believe that till I actually see it in the show. I think this was a great episode for Rainbow and Scootaloo. We finally get to meet her parents, and at the end, when they're cheering for Scootaloo, that look on her face, that just makes the whole thing worthwhile. Number 7 would be Celestial Advice. Now, a lot of people don't like this episode. They say it's boring, and they hate that Starlight was teased to be thrown away, but wasn't. Said the whole episode was pointless. Which I don't think it was. The whole point of it was to let Twilight realize that she couldn't just keep Starlight on like a student that she had control over. It was time to let Starlight have control over her own destiny. Which is one thing that Twilight didn't really have, because Celestia put her on the path and guided her to become a princess. She never intended to become a princess. It was never her dream. We don't know exactly what Twilight's dream was, other than to study. But Starlight is an open-ended question. What is she going to be in the future? Some claim that she's going to take over for Twilight, and Twilight will take over for Celestia or Luna. We'll have to see which way the show goes. But, you know, this was a good episode because we got to see behind the scenes with Celestia a bit. This is the first time we've actually seen Celestia behind the mask, who she really is. The only thing that got me on this episode was Discord. I understand why he was there, to catalyze the whole conflict, but he just turned into a annoying little bitch during this one. Kind of a little out of character considering how close they were last season, but besides that fact, he was just being kind of a dick. It was good to see the changelings again. I don't really care about their design, it's not that bad. Okay, number 6. All Bottled Up. This was a great episode. Starlight and Trixie, you can't go wrong with that combination. And Trixie being so oblivious with her head up her ass the whole time was just hilarious. Seeing Starlight literally deflate because she was bottling her anger. That was a great visual thing on that. And some people say they don't like the main 6 side plot, but I think it was pretty fun. Yeah, it was pointless, I will agree to that. But I did like the song, and it was a good juxtaposition. So, I like that. And Trixie trying to learn real magic, that was something. I always wanted to see that. Trixie has always been a question. Is she just not good with magic? Does she not have the power, or was she just never instructed? From this episode, it appears that she just was never properly instructed in magic. Because she learned the transfiguration spell pretty quick. And she did teleport the table. Unintentionally, but she did. So it is possible Trixie could become Starlight's apprentice. Wouldn't that be a cool way to go? A new spin-off, perhaps? So yeah, I like that one. Okay, number 5. Once Upon a Zeppelin. This was a great episode for Twilight. And we got some time with her parents. We've seen them before, but we haven't spent any time with them, with their personalities or anything. I really love her mom, the adventure thrill seeker. Her dad was kind of bland, kind of just a OCD guy, but, you know, he was okay. Twilight was at her best in this one, taking on all the responsibility to make sure everyone has a good time, even though she was miserable the whole time. Cadance and Shining were okay in this. The seasick joke of Shining got old really fast. And Cadance really ticked me off when she just sat there the whole time watching Twilight be miserable when she could have took over for a couple hours and let Twilight see the damn stars. So when Cadance gave her the big speech about drawing lines, I was all like, "What? Who the hell are you to lecture Twilight on anything? She's been more of a princess than any of you except Celestia. Sorry for going on my cadence rant there. She just ticked me off because she never does anything. She's supposed to be the perfect pony princess, but she doesn't do a damn thing. I'm sorry, this is supposed to be a positive list. Alright, we'll go to Rock Solid Friendship. This episode means a lot to me personally, because I am a lot like Maud. I do not get along well with others. I'm a very socially inept person. Hell, right now I only have one friend and he's across the country and can't even spend any time. I'm a very isolated individual. So I understand Maud quite well. When she said to Starlight there that she likes rocks because they don't judge you because you're different, that hit me pretty hard. Because that's me. I'm very different. And when you're that way, people generally look down on you. So when Starlight took to Maud so quick, it felt so genuine. This would be my number one, but there was some much bigger episodes that came after this, so I just can't, as much as I want to, I can't put this at number one. Some claim that the Pinkie Pie was the worst part of the episode, and I admit it got grating at times. But with how it ended, I'm okay with Pinkie in this. She learned her lesson. Thank you, Starlight, for telling her straight out, you screwed everything up. That is one reason I love Starlight so much. She doesn't pull punches. She'll tell you exactly what she's thinking. Twilight would have danced around the issue. With Pinkie Pie, you gotta tell her directly. Alright, number 3. A Royal Problem. You all knew this had to be on the list somewhere, because it's a fantastic episode. The first time the map calls anyone but the main 6. And it's Starlight Glimmer, which is great, because I love it for all the Starlight haters to go, no! I saw one reaction where the guy literally started effing up the place because Starlight got called. He's all like, screw this, I'm not watching this is bullshit. I'm like, yeah, I'm not watching your reaction after that. I'm sorry, but I don't know why everybody hates Starlight so much. I love her to death, I always have. She was the only one that could have pulled this off, not just because of the cutie mark magic, but because, like I've seen in some reviews, I don't remember which, if I mention yours, I didn't mean to steal your stuff, but Starlight is a non-believer. She doesn't see the princesses as deities, godlike creatures. She sees them as regular people. She's not afraid to tell them what she thinks, although she does have reverence for him. As she said when she did it, she was sitting there cowering before them after she switched her cutie mark. So, she understands their power. She just doesn't see them as gods. Now, some say Twilight was unnecessary in this episode, and I will agree that it didn't really add much, except it helped add a bunch of levity to the situation. Plus, it helped get Starlight's emotions kind of wonky, because without her being unsure of what she did, the rest of the episode wouldn't have worked. She wouldn't have had the nightmare, and Luna Celeste wouldn't have bonded over it. So it was necessary to get Starlight all knotted up inside. And Twilight was adorable as ever as the ballerina. That thing is going to be sold like crazy. So it was a great episode for me, and I love seeing that side of Celestia. I've always liked Luna a lot, but this kind of made me a Celestia fan quite a bit. I really like her, that she puts on such a mask for everybody else. She wants everyone to think she's the perfect pony princess and has no problems in the world and everything is sunshine and rainbows. But underneath, she's just as insecure and crazy as everybody else. She talks to herself. She always has to be the center of attention, or she doesn't feel like she's validated. But she cares deeply for everybody. You could be a pony living in a mud puddle, and she'd still care about you. Hell, she cared about Sunset Shimmer in the Equestria Girls movie, even though Sunset betrayed her. When Twilight gets back, the first thing she says is, "How's Sunset?" So that's one good thing about Celestia. She's not a great ruler, as we saw in the movie, but she is what Equestria needs. Celestia is great. I'll save that for another video. Anyway, number 2. The perfect pair. Now, of course, this had to be on the list. It would have been number 1, but I think the next episode actually surpassed it in certain ways. Now, this was the biggest episode of the season. Applejack's parents. I was so worried going into this that their parents were just going to show up out of nowhere and say, "Oh, we were just at the other farm outstate. We're back." I was so afraid that's the way they were going to go. Because, I'm sorry, but if they're still alive, that just diminishes Applejack, Apple Bloom, and Big Mac's characters. If they were just alive but gone, that would just make it so much worse. It would just ruin it. So far, the show has been able to make every major milestone properly. The CMC's cutie marks. Some question the episode, Diamond Tiara's redemption and so on, but for the most part, it's received positively. Applejack's parents, everybody loves that episode, with very few nitpicks. I guess it could be argued that Rainbow's parents weren't handled very well, but for the most part, it's been positive. So they managed to do all the major episodes positively. But this episode was great. The way they did it, where Apple Bloom just happens to bring home some pear jam. And of course, from the moment I saw a grandpear, I knew it was her grandfather. It was, obvious as a brick wall heading towards you. Whatever that's supposed to mean. Anyway, the fact that they freaked out over the pear jam, that was cool. I never heard the fandom thing saying that, the whole thing about them hating pears. I never heard that before, so that didn't hit me at all. I love that they went back to Goldie Delicious to find out what happened. And then, the greatest backstory in MLP. Pear Butter and Bright Macintosh. I still have a few questions, like who's Pear's mother and who's Macintosh's father. We have no idea who Granny had a kid with. And did she only have one? From what it looks like, that's what happened. But we never did find out who Bright Macintosh's father was. I'm not sure why they did it that way. Maybe because to keep Granny Smith's backstory a little vague. But those two were great characters. Pear Butter was so cute. That mane, it was just so curly and looks great. Bright Macintosh was fun too. You could see exactly where Big Mac gets his playful attitude from. And I think Applejack's determination comes from her mother. And Apple Bloom has her father's color scheme. That is just a great thing. And the fact that Apple Bloom inherited her mother's ability to help ponies with their cutie marks. That some say that diminishes her accomplishments, but I don't think so. I think it's great that she inherited that from her mother. And the inclusion of Mrs. Cake in the episode as a long friend of their mother was awesome. It was great to see some character from Mrs. Cake. She's been there since I don't remember exactly when she was premiered. But she was just kind of just been there. We still don't know anything about Mr. Cake. We see very little of him. But it was nice to see her backstory. How she was back then. I like that she's a little chubbier than the other ponies. It gives her character. You know, there's a lot of different body types in our world. And like Lauren Faust said, she originally wanted to do a bunch of body diversity in the show, but the animation limitations kind of made it impossible, so they just had to do a uniform body style. They're getting better these days, though. They're adding more and more different styles and whatnot. So, this episode was really good. I loved the love story between Bright Mac and Buttercup. The song, it actually made me cry. It was that sweet. I think the reason it did is because you know they're gone. That is why it was so sad. That these two beautiful people who had these great kids are gone way too early. That is what made it so impactful. And if any of you have ever wanted to see my perfect pair review, you can see why this episode meant so much to me. Alright, number 1. This one, I don't know if it's going to be a shock to you guys or you're going to agree with it, but I'm saying the finale. Shadow Play Parts 1 and 2. I really love the finale. I think it's my favorite finale the show's done so far. I know there's a lot of people that complain about the pacing and saying that this should have been stretched over the whole season, and I can agree to that to some point, but this episode really works for me, the set of episodes. I love the way they use Starlight here. She wasn't the lead in the finale. She wasn't the one doing everything. She was just the voice of reason for Twilight. Now, we all know Twi can lose vision when she gets focused on something. When she gets focused on a certain thing, she doesn't see the stuff around her and what is actually going on. That is why Starlight is such a great counterpoint to Twilight. Starlight sees the big picture. She sees what's going on, and she recognizes it. She doesn't always act on it responsibly, but she's a voice of reason, especially in these 2 episodes. I do find it a little aggravating that not one of them mentioned, wait, if we bring back the pillars, won't we bring back the Shadow Pony too? Nobody mentioned that, except Starlight saying, yeah, this is not a good idea. So that was a negative point for these episodes. But I really loved the interaction between Sunburst, Twilight, and Starlight in this one. Sunburst's excitement over it was great because it's a great addition to his character. It makes him feel like a real person, and we finally have a male character that's a positive role model. He's not a bumbling idiot, he doesn't mess everything up and the girls have to save him. He's an equal member of the team, which is great considering he's got mediocre magical abilities, but he's still treated as an equal, which is the best thing ever. Also, the pillars. They're great, although, you know, we don't know much about some of them. Somnambula, I loved her voice. That was a great accent for her. I thought that was a big negative in Daring Done is when they used a narrator to voice her, instead of giving her a voice, because that was a down point for the episode. Rawkhoof, he's the one that I have the most issue with because of how he got his powers. He just got them out of nowhere. Flash Magnus had to earn his position. So did Miss Main, so did Somnambula, so did Star Swirl. Rawkhoof was the only one that was just given his power out of nowhere. I will admit he was very, I don't know if he was brave or just stupid trying to stop the volcano. But that's another tangent for another day. And I actually did like Star Swirl. He was a jerk, but he had reasons for it. He was wrong in the end, and that's the whole point. And there's, you know, of course he was mad from his perspective. He sealed them in just a few minutes ago. And then Twilight comes along and undoes his most powerful spell ever, without a plan to deal with this Shadow Pony in the first place. Now, he did dismiss her quite a bit, and there is a question as why didn't he notice she was an alicorn? But why do most of them not notice that she's an alicorn? Hell, even in the movie, the Queen of the Hippogriffs didn't notice she was an alicorn. But the movie's another thing. I really liked the Shadow Pony in this one, even though he had a character, but not as much as we would have liked. But he had a lot more character than Sombra. I like how it was all just a misunderstanding. He was trying to be one of them, and they just assumed he was trying to steal their power and tell him to go away. Zoe got ticked off and found the power that he needed to show him up. The only downside that I can see from these two episodes is they tell us that the Shadow Pony was such a threat that we had to sacrifice the elements. But they never showed that. He never did anything from when he got back. He tried to kill Star Swirl, but that was it. Then he just went and hid for 20 minutes. What kind of threat is this guy that we couldn't just blast him with the elements and be done with it? There are some theories that the dark magic is the same kind that infected Luna to create Nightmare Moon in the first place. And it makes sense. The Nightmare Forces. I love how Twilight solved the conflict in the end. It wasn't the magical muscle, it was Twilight being at her best. Talking to Stygian as an equal. Telling him you don't need to do this to be important. You're a good person and we want you back. She got through to Star Swirl. And I think that's the best part is at the end, Star Swirl actually admitted he was wrong. How many times do they admit they're wrong? Very seldom. Especially a guy like Star Swirl. You gotta admit he was probably just swallowing his pride there. There's a reason he never finished that Alicorn spell. He didn't have the right mindset. And of course, the best part was the end, when he met Luna and Celestia again. That was good that they included that. I love that part there. Look how big you've gotten, which indicates that over 1,000 years ago, they were smaller. Maybe with a pink mane, maybe? I don't know, it's possible it's something like that. I do find a few things strange in this episode, though. When Miss Mane and Rockhoof said they wanted to go back to their homes, why didn't anyone tell them that, well, Rockhoof, your home is destroyed completely, there's nothing there but ruins? And Miss Mane, there's only one of your relatives living there, everyone else is gone. Don't you think that's something they should know before they head back? Also, there's, Somnambula had a good place to go back to. She was quite beloved in her village, and she would be revered. Flash Magnus, I don't know where the heck he's gonna go. I doubt the Royal Legion's around anymore, because they're now the UFP. Not UFP, yeah, not that series. You know what I mean. Protected Poloni Platoons, the PPP. That's a horrible acronym. And Star Swirl's gonna wander, so I don't know. We might see him again in Season 8. Who knows? From what I hear, Season 8 is rapidly approaching. Anyway, that was my list of the top 10 episodes. I'm sorry this video was so long. I just had to gush on these episodes. And thank you for anyone that actually listened to this, and please support the official release. I will be releasing my commentaries for Season 8 and 9 if I'm still around at that time, which I should be. The show's just been getting better and better every season. I have very few red lines that this show could cross to send me away, so I should be here for a while. Anyway, thanks all, and bye.